Hello everyone, welcome to event 6 of the Trio Marble Championship Games. It is ice block pushing. It's an event we saw in the qualifiers. The goal, of course, is to push the block of ice as far as you can. If you push it off of the track, you will be disqualified. We saw the scientists win this in the qualifiers over Winfinity and the Night Drifts, who are not in the tournament. They did not make it. So the Sparkling Stars, the team with the third best score, Scientists, Winfinity, and the Sparkling Stars, teams to watch out for, as well as the Red Rogues, Magmatics, Electrolytes, Plasma Stripes also got up there. There was a three-way tie for 6th place, Magmatics, Electrolytes, Plasma Stripes. You just saw the overall standings. The Twilight Tailors lead over the Hummingbirds and the hosting Polar Panthers. Here's the example run. I thought they lost a marble, just went under the block there. You don't want to hit the block too high, or else you might risk one of your marbles falling into the block, which gives it more weight, and then the downforce is less than it would be otherwise. So that was not a great run there, but we saw a lot of good runs, including the Scientists in the qualifiers. Can they replicate it here? That's the question. They're off. Scientists, best of the teams in the qualifiers, and it will not happen again. It doesn't look like. That was not a very good score. Didn't even reach 13. See, they did exactly what I said not to do. One of their marbles entered the block. Looks like it got pushed in by the second marble, but you want to keep all three close together to prevent that from happening. Instead, it's a 12-63, and the Scientists, who won out in the qualifiers, will not be repeating here. The Magmatics are up next. They tied for 6th. What can they do? Looking for better than the Scientists, and it will happen by a wide margin. Almost 10 centimeters better it might actually be. What a run there for the Magmatics, who have not had a season to remember so far, faring a lot worse than they did in the first season. A lot of fans were disappointed with the performances up to this point. I don't know if this will be enough to hold on for a medal, but we'll have to see. It's a lot better than what we saw from the Scientists, obviously. Sparkling Stars, the third best team to make it at ice block pushing to the main tournament. There they go. They hit the block and push it right off the track. I think that first marble was trying not to fall inside the block, ended up veering to the top and pushing it off the bottom. I think I misspoke earlier and said that that would be a straight up elimination, but in fact they'll have one extra shot to try and right the wrongs that heat provided them. Sparkling Stars, with their second attempt, if they DNF once more, then they will be eliminated from the competition. And it almost looked like it was going to come off for a second. That's the best score of the day by a slim margin. And it took them 2 tries, but that won't matter very much because everybody has 2 tries available. At least if they knock the block off the first time. It looked very close to coming off a second time. The Sparkling Stars sit in first, but they could very well be sitting in last if they made just a minor error there. Nonetheless, it's first of 3, and they will move on. Here are the Camos now. They only got 12th in the qualifiers, but as we've seen now, success in the qualifiers does not directly translate to the main tournament, and vice versa. There's a 24 for them. It looks to be almost 24 exactly. I don't think it will shake out to be. But a good run there, it looked like. Still only 3rd of 4. The only team to perform poorly are the Scientists, who won out in the qualifiers, and it will be exactly 24. What a score for them. So 24-ish, I think, is probably the cutoff of what I would consider a good score so far. Maybe the Red Rogues will change my mind. They were up there in the qualifiers. They got 5th. And it kind of transfers over. They will just barely fail to reach 23. I don't know if I would say, okay, maybe 24 isn't the cutoff for a good score, but 24 I think is a cutoff to where you're competing for top 5 slots. As we've seen lots of teams pull out all the stops here. In fact, now 4 of the first 5 teams have passed 20. So all around, the competition looks to be a lot closer for this one, and a lot more competitive than we saw earlier. The Electrolytes, they were one of the 3 teams that tied for 6th. What can they do? They're off. Coming together, but all their momentum is all arrested because one of their marbles falls within the block, and that downward force cancels it out, or cancels out any momentum they had going forward. Is that enough to beat the Scientists? I don't remember their score. That's the only team that they're competing with now. Everybody else past 20. So will they be 5th or 6th? They will be 5th with a 1375. Not a great score for them, but nonetheless we move on. Ferocious Flames, the 7th team to go. In the qualifiers, they placed mid-pack, only managing 10th. And it looks like they will about match that placement. I think just cracking 22. I can't exactly tell. But it is very close to that 22 mark, and that's not one of the greatest scores we've seen today. But again, if you pass that 20 mark, that's when your scores start to become respectable. that 24, 25, 26 range, that's where you're going to want to be to challenge for a podium. The Ferocious Flames cannot get there, but they're sitting in top 5. However, only 7 teams have gone so far. Very close competition. Here come the Plasma Stripes. They were tied for 6th as well. What will they be able to do here? Looked like a good push. No issues with the push, but they just did not have the distance. Some other teams, we saw the Sparkling Stars second run, they moved the block back and forth horizontally instead of pushing that momentum forwards. This case, we see it be pushed almost perfectly forwards and just not enough force behind the push. So they will be 6th of 8. Plasma Stripes have not had a good season so far. And they didn't particularly have a good season in Season 1 either, where they placed among the bottom teams as the host. The Scientists, the worst team to go so far, they won by a wide margin in the qualifiers. Lilac Lightning up next. They participated in the friendly, so we don't know exactly what their score was compared to the other teams. But will they do well? We'll find out now. A good spread there, and it does end up paying off. They passed that 24 mark, so they're past the camos. I believe that's medal contention for the moment. I don't know which color medal that would be, though. I don't think it'll be gold. You're looking at a bronze or a silver with this run. Almost 24-5, closer to 24-2-5. It'll be 24-2-5, and it's enough for a 3rd place. So like I said, you got to pass 24, and now it looks like you got to reach for 25 or above if you want to medal. Team Antimatter, can they do so? They did not place well in the qualifiers. Will it matter? With the second run, they fare better than they did in the qualifiers, but worse overall than some of the teams we've seen so far. Really only 2 having problems. It's the Electrolytes and the Scientists. Everybody else performing pretty well, all things considered, but failing to reach 23 is only enough for 6th, and they're still in the bottom half. And that was a great run if you look at it in a vacuum. So the field of competition, now that we made the main tournament, is so much higher. The Freeze Burn's up now. And they push it off the track. They do the same thing the Sparkling Stars did, so they will have another chance. Will they be able to use it is the question. We'll see how they knocked it off, because we saw how the Sparkling Stars did pretty obviously. I think for this one, it just happened to be they actually ended up within the block and tried to sneak their way back out, but in doing so, they flipped it up and off the track. Freeze Burn's second run now. What can they do? They come together earlier, and it doesn't help. They are eliminated from the challenge. 2 DNFs in a row, or 2, I guess, disqualifications in a row. And they will not place. So they are last, 11th of 11. And that's not what they needed. As the gap up top gets larger and larger for them, it'll continue to grow with this one. They do not score. 5 teams to go. And these 5 teams looking to score. Winfinity got 2nd in the qualifiers. Will they meet the same fate as the Scientists, or will they continue their dominance? They meet the same fate as the Scientists, and it's barely past 15. Not a good run for the top 2 teams of the qualifiers, and the 3rd team did not qualify. So the podium of the ice block pushing qualifiers, not representing in the main tournament. We will have a completely new podium, potentially a completely new top 4, but the Sparkling Stars got 4th in the qualifiers and look like they are on track to get top 4 once again. We'll just see what happens with these last 4 heats. Polar Panthers in Heat 13 in front of the home crowd, and they get stuck in between the block, and that's the worst score we've seen all day, I think, unless it was the Scientists. But really, not a great performance there. When you see the 2 marbles hanging back and 1 up front, that has not worked out very well for teams so far, because it ends up those 2 marbles come together and push the first marble into the block, and they can't escape. It's an 11-2-5, the worst of all marbles to score, but still only 1 place off of last because of a DNS. The Wolf Warriors now. Good push for them. Not enough for a podium, but enough for perhaps top 5. I think that does put them in 5th. It should be enough for a top half minimum, as there's only 2 teams left to run. Yes, Wolf Warriors in 5th place. 2 teams remain. One of them, the championship-leading Twilight Tailors. Can they stretch their lead up top, or will they give the other teams a chance to catch up? And a good push there, but it won't be enough for a medal. It might be more than the Wolf Warriors. They might have gotten 5th. We'll see exactly where that score shakes out, but it does not pass the Camos for 4th. Or actually comes very close. Maybe they tie for 4th. No, just short. A 23-8-8 for 5th. And now a single team remains. The Hummingbirds, 2nd place overall. Can they close that gap? They need at least a 24 to do so. And it will not happen in the first run, but there is still hope in the second. We've seen now 3 teams have to use their second run. Only one of them ended up scoring so far. 50% success rate on that second run. And once again, it was the 2 back, 1 forward formation that did not work out. Hummingbirds, second chance. They spread out evenly, hit the block, but the momentum is arrested, as we've seen with the Electrolytes, as we've seen with the Polar Panthers, as many teams have went through today. It happens again to the championship runner-up, at least through the first 5 events, but I believe that'll be changing now, as that gap up top is going to stretch. The Twilight Tailors could only manage 5th, which is pretty good all things considered, but the Hummingbirds only get 12th. That's 7 teams in between them. So the Sparkling Stars provisionally are your ice block pushing winners over the Magmatics and the Lilac Lightning. The Camos come just short. Twilight Tailors still manage top 5 despite not medaling, but the Scientists and Winfinity fail to show up. Nitrifs did not even show up for the tournament, so the Sparkling Stars capitalize, and they will end up on top of the podium aside the Magmatics and the Lilac Lightning. Congratulations to all of our podium marbles. The Twilight Tailors are still at the top of the tournament standings, and that gap has grown to 29 points. That's 2 higher than last time. The Sparkling Stars usurp the Hummingbirds, and they are now in 2nd. Hummingbirds in 3rd. Lilac Lightning all the way up to 4th. Wolf Warriors are back up into the top 5, so it's Season 1 dominance. Polar Panthers also up there. The hosting team in the top 6. Twilight Tailors, however, are leading and will continue to lead at the very least until the end of next event. Next event is the Slapshot Shootout, and we'll see you then.